The reason you still suffer isn't because life is unfair. It's because you keep clinging to things the Stoics warned you to release. You've been secretly convinced that control equals peace, that the world must bend to your will before you can exhale without tension. But Epictetus would have laughed at that idea before calmly reminding you that the only true control lies within your own mind. Right now, you're probably chained to expectations about how people should treat you, how fast your career should grow, how love should feel like a movie. But Marcus Aurelius, a man who ruled the known world, scribbled in his journal each morning not to expect fairness, not to demand comfort, but to be unmoved when reality inevitably betrays your hopes. If you're honest, most of your pain comes not from what happened, but from your resistance to it, the story you spin in your head about how it should have gone differently. That's your first trap. You confuse pain with injustice when Stoicism says pain is natural, but suffering is optional. You add weight to your pain by labeling it unfair, undeserved, too much, when in truth, the Stoics believed that labeling is the source of agony. You think your suffering makes you weak, but the Stoics saw it as training. Seneca called hardship the fire that forges greatness, not the curse that breaks you. Ask yourself this: when was the last time you faced discomfort and didn't immediately try to numb it, escape it, or rage against it? That reflex is your enemy. What if instead, you stared it in the face and said, "This is fuel"? Because that's what Stoicism demands. Not passivity, not fatalism, but fierce acceptance. And here's something more unsettling. Sometimes, you suffer because you secretly want to. There's comfort in being the victim, in clinging to wounds because they justify your inaction, your bitterness, your identity. But if you hold on to pain like a badge of honor, how can you ever transform it into strength? That's the hidden cost of refusing to let go. You believe closure will come from the outside, from apologies, justice, recognition, but the Stoics would scoff and remind you that closure is internal, forged in silence, not gifted by others. You wait for your past to release you, but the Stoics would tell you the key has always been in your hand. And now, let's confront the second truth. You think your thoughts are facts. You trust the voice in your head as if it's a prophet, not realizing it's often a liar soaked in fear, habit, and emotion. Stoicism teaches you to interrogate every thought. Is this within my control? Is this useful? Is this worthy of my peace? But most people never pause long enough to ask. They spiral, ruminate, catastrophize, then wonder why their mind feels like a prison. Your suffering thrives in that silence, that automatic obedience to your worst inner stories. It tells you you're not enough, that you've failed, that things will never change. And you believe it because no one taught you to stand guard at the gates of your mind. Marcus Aurelius trained himself every morning to anticipate chaos, betrayal, death, not because he was negative, but because he understood that expectation is the root of disappointment. You wake up expecting ease, fairness, validation, and then life slaps you, and you call it suffering. But it wasn't the slap, it was the surprise. The Stoics had a brutal clarity: don't expect the world to be gentle. Prepare yourself to be strong. You want peace, but your peace is brittle. It shatters when someone criticizes you, when plans shift, when outcomes don't align with your fantasies. The Stoic kind of peace is different. It's unshakable because it's not built on outcomes, it's built on principles. What if you stopped needing things to go right and started needing only one thing: to act with virtue? That's the third key. You think results define your success, but Stoicism measures only your effort, your integrity, your alignment with reason. Imagine how much suffering you'd shed if you stopped judging yourself by external rewards and started asking only, did I live according to my values today? Suddenly, failure becomes feedback. Rejection becomes redirection. Pain becomes purification. That's not poetic, it's strategic. And now we reach the fourth insight, the one most people resist the hardest. You're going to die. Memento mori isn't just a gloomy mantra, it's your clearest mirror. Every day you spend consumed by resentment, by what-ifs, by chasing approval, is a day you hand over to death without meaning. The Stoics saw death not as a tragedy but as a clarifier. Seneca wrote that life is long. If you know how to use it, you suffer because you act as if you have infinite time, as if this conversation, this grudge, This delay in chasing what matters doesn't cost you your most precious currency. Now. And what happens when you finally realize that? You stop giving your peace to petty things. You stop postponing your purpose. You stop tolerating the noise in your mind. There's no peace in pretending life is forever. The only real peace is living like it's not. So here's the challenge. If you want to stop suffering, stop looking outward. Stop waiting for life to get easier, or for people to treat you better, or for your thoughts to fix themselves. Instead, do what the Stoics did. Strip everything down to what you can control. Your judgments, your actions, your character. Measure your progress not by what happens to you, but by how little it moves you. Because that's the Stoic superpower: serenity in the storm, clarity in the chaos. And if you're still suffering, maybe it's not because the world is too much. It's because you've been trained to expect too little of yourself. Subscribe now, not for me, but for you. Because you're about to unlearn everything the world taught you about happiness. And this is just the beginning. You think you're awake, but you're still sleepwalking through a world ruled by illusions, status, control, permanence, all the things the Stoics warned you would poison your peace. You've been taught to chase security as if it's real, to accumulate and cling and protect as if anything outside yourself is truly yours, but Marcus Aurelius wrote plainly, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. That's not metaphor. It's a warning, a shock to jolt you into presence. Because every moment you spend obsessing over outcomes is a moment you abandon what really matters. Your virtue, your discipline, your perception. Suffering festers in that gap between what is and what you demand. The Stoics didn't deny emotion, they denied enslavement to it. You, on the other hand, treat every feeling as truth, every impulse as a command. Your anxiety tells you to run, so you run. Your anger tells you to lash out, so you do. But what if you stopped obeying your emotions like a dog chained to chaos? What if, like Epictetus taught, you learned to pause, question, and choose your response with precision? That is the secret of freedom, not in doing whatever you feel, but in mastering the distance between stimulus and action. The truth is, most people don't want that kind of freedom because it requires responsibility, and it's easier to blame others than to admit you're complicit in your own torment. You say you're overwhelmed, but you never interrogate your desires. The Stoics would say it's not the weight of the world that crushes you, it's your need for things to go your way. Strip that away, and suddenly you're light again, even in pain. Because pain without resistance becomes pure sensation. But pain plus resistance? That's what you call suffering. You want control? Control your reaction. Control your narrative. Control how you show up in the fire. Seneca wrote that we suffer more in imagination than in reality, and your life proves him right every time you spiral into fear over things that haven't happened yet. You rehearse disasters. You pre-live failure. You carry a future that doesn't exist and wonder why you're exhausted. But here's the question the Stoics would throw like a cold slap. What if it does happen? So what? What matters isn't whether the worst comes true, but whether you're the kind of person who can face it with clarity, dignity, and calm. You suffer because you prepare for a perfect world while secretly fearing the real one. So, prepare for reality instead. Expect hardship. Train for loss. Practice poverty. Marcus slept on the floor. Epictetus was a slave. They didn't romanticize struggle. They rehearsed it so they could rise above it. When you run from discomfort, you give it power. When you walk into it with purpose, you take that power back. Now ask yourself this: what would your life look like if you stopped needing it to be easy? If you stopped making peace conditional on comfort? You think the breakthrough comes from changing your job, your partner, your circumstances. But the Stoics knew better. The real shift happens when you stop negotiating with life. When you stop saying, "I'll be at peace if," and start saying, "I'll be at peace regardless." That is the Stoic edge. That is how you walk through chaos untouched. But it's not just about self-protection. It's about self-transcendence. Because the fifth insight, the one no one wants to hear, is that your suffering has made you selfish. Not intentionally, not cruelly, but when you're consumed by your own pain, you forget your role in the larger order. You forget the Stoic concept of cosmopolis, that you're part of a greater whole, that your duty isn't just to yourself, but to the community, the world, the human experience. When you obsess over your struggle, you stop contributing, stop lifting, stop leading. But when you shift from, why is this happening to me, to, how can I use this to serve, your suffering transforms into fuel. It sharpens your empathy. It grounds your wisdom. It turns you into a force that others can lean on. Marcus Aurelius didn't complain in his journal. He reminded himself to do his job as a human being, to rise, to act, to leave the world better than he found it, even when it broke his heart. You want meaning? Then show up when it's hardest. That's where meaning lives, not in the easy days, but in the fire. And here's the paradox the Stoics knew. When you accept suffering as part of the path, it stops owning you. When you stop resisting pain, you strip it of its teeth. When you stop demanding ease, you discover a strength that terrifies your past self. And maybe that's the real reason you suffer. You haven't met that future version of you yet. The one who doesn't flinch. The one who doesn't beg for peace, but radiates it. The one who walks into storms with eyes wide open and says, "Good, let's go." That version of you is waiting on the other side of every excuse, every reaction, every story you still tell yourself about why you're broken. But you're not broken. You're just untrained. And the Stoics left you the map. Now it's your move. You can keep blaming, numbing, hiding. Or you can start forging the kind of character that doesn't need anything external to feel unshakable. The question is, are you finally ready to suffer less by demanding less and becoming more? Subscribe now, not because you're looking for answers, but because you're finally ready to become one.